Hello, YouTube. All right, let's wait for everybody to arrive. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Hey, let's give everyone a minute or two to show up. I've not seen Frankenweenie, Rose, should I?
It's a fairly old movie from 2011, I think. That's when it came out.
Whose is it? It's not a Tim Burton movie, is it?
It is.
Oh, it is. Oh, I think anything he does is worth watching. I'm surprised I haven't seen it. I like Big Fish, I think, is probably my favorite of his. Have you seen it? Very good. Strange. Good afternoon, everybody. I think we're mostly all here. Mostly. So, I want to say a couple of unusual things about today, the last couple days of the semester. I'm gonna, in fact, I think I want to jump right to the screen sharing, just so I could get that stuff out of the way. So give me 1 second here. All right. Okay. So, one thing I did not expect. Hang on a second. There's still some people waiting, so excuse me if I pop in and out for a couple minutes while I let people in. So one thing I didn't expect was a fair number of people did the final early, and what the weird thing from my perspective is, it gets kind of difficult for the teacher to tell what's a big challenge for the class sometimes and what's like easy. It's a little easier for me to gauge enthusiasm, and it seemed a lot of people really enjoyed the animation, which makes me really happy because I feel the same. But a lot of work came in early. So, my goal was to make today and Thursday an assisted lab. So I'm going to make everyone an outstanding offer. And please, use this however you want to use it, right? If you finished early already, right, I'm going to mark you present, right? And that's for today and for Thursday, because that's the whole goal. You might remember the midterm, which seems like years ago, even though it wasn't. We spent like 4 sessions on the midterm. We worked together, became a good learning experience, at least as I recall, at least 3. So I had the same idea with this, but a number of people finished early. A number of people completely went beyond what I expected early. So I'm not going to torture them by making them stay. Guys, listen, I have a terrible memory for that type of thing. So I can't tell from looking at you or reading your name whether you already gave me the work or not. And even though I kind of remember Shuying, I think you were first. She was first, really. So again, if you've already done it and you want to take off, I'm marking you in. Don't worry about it. The same thing, essentially, if you like, you could see the semester as over. I want to be a little bit more specific, though. I probably mentioned to you that my daughter's also in college elsewhere, and her classes all finished early. So I've been asking her, how that happened. I want to interject something. You would think you get the exact same number of hours every semester, but you don't. And in fact, there's a minimum number of hours that we have to satisfy, but the maximum is really unclear. For example, last semester, I had 27 sessions to teach this course. You might notice today's 28. and there's still Thursday. I've been here for a few years. That's never happened before. There's actually 2 full extra sessions, a total of 4 extra hours. So that's kind of why we have a little bit of wiggle room, in case anyone's wondering how that actually happened. Why we have the extra sessions, I don't know. But I mark every single one on a calendar, so there's not a lot of room for error. So anyway, let me back up. Let's take a look at the handout again as together as a grounding way for us to make these decisions. So technically, this is why I put required in quotes, one of these. Is everybody seeing, by the way? Just want to make sure that everything's going as it should. All right. So technically Thursday is the last class before exam week, right? So just want to be very clear that what I'm trying to say. This is the last class before exam week. They're really, in a sense, if we were forced to use the word exam, this is it, today and Thursday. But if you finished, well, you don't have to come. If you finish today, you don't have to come Thursday. Even if you finish Wednesday, you don't have to come on Thursday unless you just feel like it. So what I'm really intending on doing is just being here to help people who need a hand while they work on the final. That's my real goal. So anyway, that's Thursday. I want to tell you about next Tuesday. Next Tuesday is exam week. And, that's natural for classes that have exams. But a lot of art classes do things differently. And exam week has always been a mystery for me. Like, so, really, I know some teachers, I believe some teachers just give students the day off. They take it off also. I would like to do that, but I don't think I'm gonna. What I'm gonna do is this. This is so completely optional. What I think I want to do on Tuesday is a 1-day Illustrator workshop. 2-hour crash course, introduction to Adobe Illustrator. If you do want to join me on Tuesday, right, load Adobe Illustrator, gain access to it. It's part of the Creative Cloud, which most of you have. Anyone who doesn't has been using remote access. That also has it. I don't want to make a big speech about Adobe Illustrator, but I do want to say this is just like a free workshop, right? So it doesn't affect your grade in any way or form, just if you like the idea. Usually I get like 3 or 4 people show up, so it's really if you're in the mood for it. Couple fast words for anyone who's like, well, what is it? Adobe Illustrator. What is it really? Well, as the name implies, it's a very famous drawing program, probably the most famous drawing program. A lot of artists use it, and a lot of them use it with Photoshop. Some people even do all the drawing, get the main things down in Illustrator, and then bring it into Photoshop and treat it with the same tools that we've been using, even though it didn't start as a photograph. That's one way. Illustrator, the program, is also used for most logos that you see. All graphic elements, like all the icons on your desktop, the little folders, etc. All the little icons that represent your software. So illustration, icons, all kinds of graphic design elements that qualify as drawing in any way. It's also very common amongst 2D illustrators. There's many ways to make artwork for 2D animation that you've already seen, including doing everything in Adobe Animate. I just quickly want to mention, though, hey Chris, the two programs play together very nicely. Since Adobe owns them both. Adobe didn't create them both. Adobe kind of bought them out, really. But now they've owned them for years, so the two programs play together really nicely. That is Animate, which we've been using, which also really can draw. Got to say, we haven't done a lot with that, but it's become an incredible drawing program, but exclusively for animation, really. No one's actually using it for print, though they probably could. So anyway, if Illustrator sounds interesting to you, right, and you'd like to join, that's next Tuesday. That'll be the last time I see a bunch of you, right? Just load it before you get there so you have some fun. I'm going to dive right in. I've been teaching Illustrator for over 20 years, so I'm a good friend of it.
Question.
Yes, Chris.
We have class Thursday or no?
We have class Thursday only for those of you who have not finished the final before Thursday.
Okay.
So I'm going to be here, same time, same everything. And, 6 people finished. I was shocked. I looked, by the way, those grades are already up. If you happen to finish early. But, anybody who just wants to do more, they're welcome to come. If you want to just do some animation for the fun of it, do more text. I know some of you got huge appetites. So that's it, right? Today we're starting that. I'm gonna try to speed it up a little, just so that we can get to that. But yes, Thursday, if you haven't finished, please come Thursday so I can be helpful to you, right? And then next Tuesday is flat out an additional thing, utterly optional. And as I said, just get yourself a copy of Illustrator or access through remote access, however you want to do it, if you'd like to get a taste of Illustrator. You know, I don't want to talk it up too much because I'm a drawing type of person. You know, my art history started with drawing. So it's kind of natural for me to love Illustrator, but I've also used it as I used to do greeting cards for a living for a short while, and I did almost all of them in Illustrator, for example. So anyway, anybody have any questions? Please, it's okay, about today, Thursday, or the last free workshop next Tuesday? Yeah. Okay. Let me just take a look, make sure that I don't forget anything else important. Videos, tutoring, blah, blah. You know the story. I say the same thing every week. But listen, about Blackboard, you know, I didn't expect to grade last stuff this morning. I just sort of spontaneously did that. So I want to be very clear. I graded all the finals that were delivered properly. And I also graded anything in the late folder. Now, if you put anything accidentally in an old folder, I don't open old folders, you know, because there's literally zillions of homeworks. I get about 2,000 homeworks, I think, per year. So I can't keep looking in the same places. That's why I have a designated late folder. If I already graded it, there's a little star next to your file in Google Drive, which means I already got there. So if you did it in the last hour, I didn't. But anything before the hour, I've graded everything. So what that means in a practical sense is you need to go to Blackboard at some point, right? And see how you did. Check the weighted average section, right? Because that's going to give you very close to what your final grade's going to be. You know, depending on other details, it may be a little lower, a little higher, but I'm a generous grader mostly, right? So I always start with the weighted average. By the way, the word weighted just means that like the midterm and the final are worth a little bit more than say that first little miniature web assignment back in week 4. It was tiny by comparison to the graffiti midterm. So the weighted average really shows you what your weighted average is, right? So look, if you have any questions about it, send me a thoughtful email. Also, if it looks like a homework is missing, and you could swear you sent it to me, right? Send it to me, upload it again, and tell me in an email that you did that, right? You know, I'm open-minded. You know, I'm going to assume that you're, you know, honorable person and it just got lost. You know, it happens, right? But you have to take action. You know, I got to admit, there are a couple people in this class who scored the highest grades in 3 projects and just skipped one, which always makes me think there's been a mistake. How does a person get all A's and just skip 1 out of 4 projects? So please check. There's still time to take action. All right. The late work, just to repeat it, must go in my late work folder. So that basically means, you know, click the Google Drive thing. It'll take you here. You'll see the late work folder. Double click it and drop your work in here. You know, these all have stars. So I graded all these. These all have stars too. These are the new finals that came in and these are also graded. So, all right. So if there are no questions for me, right, I want to point out that we actually went over the main techniques several times. I kind of lost track of how many times, you know, at least twice, if not more. So before the little JavaScript P5 detour, we did kinetic type together as a group. People seem to do well, feel pretty good about it. Then just this last Thursday, we did it again as a warm-up. And even then I said, if any of you felt brave enough, you could have started the final right then and there. So today I'm not holding anybody's hand. You got to jump in. So this is what today's plan is. It's very, very simple, right? If you have not started at all right, here's the first steps, right? You're gonna need a fair amount of independence today. I'm here really to troubleshoot with you or to answer wish list questions like, how would I make it do something that didn't come up? But here's the idea. So if you haven't started yet, please choose one of these right away. If you're nervous in any way, please choose the first one because it's shortest, right? So this is the phrase, this is the author, you have to include the name of the person who said it, right? If you're feeling pretty confident and you'd like a bigger challenge, you want to show off a little bit more, go on to the next one, which is longer, or the next one, which is longer, or the last one, which is really long. About that last one, that kind of wants to be treated almost like scenes. It's kind of a bit much for one page to have all that text. Can be done though, and it can be done beautifully. But the one or two people who chose to do it so far kind of chose to do it like, okay, here's my animation for the first sentence or two, and then it all leaves somehow, and then the next couple sentences came in. It's a little bit more elaborate. So please know thyself. I am here to help if you get it off the ground. All right, so you choose one. The next thing you do is you open up Animate and figure out how it should look at the end, right? So basically you're acting just like you're designing a poster. That's your first step. So I'm going to dive in and just kind of throw out some stuff. I would like to say though, if you're feeling at all confident, don't follow along with me like step by step. This is not really a class exercise. This is just for anyone who wants to peek now and then at what I'm doing. I'm going to try to not be distracting. But what I need from you is the promise that you'll turn on your mic and call me as soon as you have something you want to ask. It's my job. All right. So feel free to do that. Just jump right in. Also, I'll try to look at my chats because I know some people are much more comfortable chatting me, even though it's the thing I'm worst at. There's no school Thursday? Remy's telling me that. Does anyone else gotten that impression that there's no school on Thursday?
Really? There isn't?
No, Remy, I don't think you're right.
I was asked.
Remy, your audio went out. You want to say that again? Guys, listen, I'm going to solve this right in front of everybody just in case. I've made mistakes, but it would be weird if only one person thought Thursday was off and they were right. I'm listening. Oh man, we're really having internet problems. Remy, I'm so sorry. I don't think anyone can hear you. You could chat it, what you want to say. Yeah, but I'm going to go to the calendar. Remy, I'm really sorry that we can't hear you. So let's just take a quick look. All right. I see what she's saying. She's saying that those 2 days and then next week, I guess, is considered exam week, which is rather bizarre. So look, as I said, that doesn't really trouble me anyway, because I'm making Thursday voluntary anyway, right? I've gone over the final enough. So again, if anyone's uncomfortable with the steps, since I'm not going to do it in the same step by step by step approach, my strongest heartfelt recommendation is watch the last video. The link to all the videos is on today's handout. I would watch class 27. I think that's probably the best one for anyone who's feeling real insecure and needs, step-by-step approach. You could literally do your final while watching the video. Do a little bit, pause it, do a little more, pause it, right? So again, if anyone does need a hand from me, doesn't want to come Thursday because, it is a required attendance day, just because it's reading day, I don't believe that there's not required attendance. That would be brand new, and I've been here for years. But, I'm open. You got to do what you have to do, right? I really, it's all about the final as far as I'm concerned. So I'm going to move forward. Yeah, Remy's teacher, one of her teachers told her that there was no school Thursday and Friday. I disagree. You know, if there was no school, the calendar would say no school. That's what it would say, right? So reading day is a mysterious CUNY-wide thing. I know students at other colleges that are like, what the hell is it? I really don't know. You know, am I going to ask us all to read? Oh, I'm going to read a little bit from The Godfather. Yeah, I don't think so. So I don't know. Yeah, if your teacher told you to take Thursday off, go ahead. I would. All right. So everybody, I'm going to try to be a little less distracting. As I said, I am going to work, try to be quiet about it, you know, but your idea is to make that choice and start designing. And you could peek at what I'm doing if you think it's going to help. Does anybody have a question before I get started just on this? Yeah, Alex.
I have a question.
Sure.
I am having an issue with exporting, and it's a question that I asked you before. I just haven't been able to find the answer to it. And I thought maybe if I shared my screen, you could see something that maybe
Yeah,
I don't.
I'll be glad to do that. Yeah, let me stop sharing. All right. Yeah,
Okay.
I'd be glad to see.
Okay. So when I go to export it,
Mm-hmm.
let's see. Sorry.
That's all right. That's fine.
It's this matte thing over here that messes it up.
Interesting.
Um,
So is the trouble an image quality issue?
no, the trouble is that it looks like this.
That's the way it comes out.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
I want to ask you something. On the stage itself, are you using a, can you cancel out of here just for a
Mhm.
second? Just so I can understand a little bit better.
So I have the stage set to this blue color, and then I have a blue box behind him and right here.
Can I see your lowest layer? So that the blue box should be down.
The blue box is not at the very bottom.
Okay. The blue box is.
It's right here.
So can you hide that layer for a minute?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're right. The little eye.
And I'll hide the other box too. I don't know where it is. I don't know where it is, but I'll find it.
You know what I'd like to see first is, could you do, what kind of computer are you on, Mac or Windows?
Mac.
Can you do command return so I could see the Swift?
That is also an issue because it's not working.
What happens?
This.
All right.
Oh my God, it's never worked before.
That's
I guess it
Murphy's
is
law of
working now.
doing things in front of the teacher.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very surprising to me that the Swift is coming out perfectly, right? And by the way, you could send me the Swift for the final. I'm accepting.
I just didn't think it was going to save. Otherwise, I would have done that.
Okay, but I am kind of curious. So you're saying right now, if you made a new GIF, you're expecting that it won't come out the same way.
Correct. I tried right before class.
Really?
Mhm.
And you think it's about the matte feature?
Yeah. Whenever you were sharing your screen and you were exporting it, the matte was blocked out on yours.
I see. Can I see that feature one more time? If you can go back to file export.
Yes.
So listen, first thing I want to do is I want to confess to you that I've not used this feature in years, right? And the way that I remember it working is this, and I could be wrong, right? So this is why I really want you to take what I'm saying with grain of, some, salt or whatever they say, however the expression goes. When you export a GIF, do you see those chewy lines around the musician, around that fellow? It's got those chewy lines over his shoulder, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Those are called anti-aliased pixels. And they're there because originally he had a different color background. And these pixels were there to smooth him with his earlier background. But they came in here and they're still there. So sometimes people try to match the new background. And the idea is to, you know, replace those pixels. That's the idea. So typically what a person would do is they'd go to the matte option and, you know, and choose the same, say, blue color as the background. But the reason it shouldn't matter on yours is you have transparency unchecked, right? Which means we should only be seeing the physical background colors you made on your layers, and it should be ignoring. Actually, that's wrong. I'm sorry. With it unchecked, we should be seeing the background color you chose, you know, period, because transparency is unchecked. So why? So when you set it matte to none, does it come out looking the way we're looking at it now?
Yes.
Partially white?
Yeah.
So I think this is what I would do. Can you, I'm not sure what's causing it, but this would be my solution if you really needed a GIF. I'm going to ask you to turn off the screen sharing for a minute. But now remember, for me, just send me the Swift, right? But if you really needed a GIF and a particular file is being stubborn, this is what I would do. Give me a minute. I'm going to just open something that I have that might already work with it. There. You know, basically what I'm going to show you is I would ignore the background color feature and just make sure that there's a wall-to-wall box.
That's what I was planning on doing.
Yeah, I think, you know, you're clever, and I think that intuition was the right way to go. I was using this as an example. Why is this happening now in the middle of my class? Go away, Adobe. Are you going to insist that I give you a good review? Is that what's happening? Oh, no. I don't know why, but I'm going to just. Sorry about that. It's a little. I feel lucky I got through the whole semester with very, very few of those kinds of problems. All right, let's hope this works a little better. All right, there we go. I want to show you something about this. Here, I have a background layer. I often do this. It's called BG. And for that reason, no matter what I do here, doesn't even matter. Nothing's going to change, right? So no matter if I make it a GIF or I make it a video or I make it a SWIFT, this artwork is on equal terms. I want to say in this particular animation, I did that because I wanted the background to change.
But if you're not sharing your screen.
Oh, I'm not. Oh, boy. Oh, sorry about that. I forgot. I'm so used to having it on most of the time. Thank you. Are you seeing my screen now? Are you guys seeing my screen?
Yeah, I can see
Yes.
it.
All right, great. So let me show you this again. The lowest layer here says BG. So really what it is it's just this box. Now, if I hit it, this is the green stage, but it doesn't even matter because I'm not using it. I put a box the size of the stage right over it, like you were thinking of doing, right? I just want to add, since I did that, I actually tween the box. So you'll notice that the background actually changes color. And I had motives for it. I want to show you what they were.
Fire and ice. Some say the world will end in fire, some say in ice. From what I've tasted of desire, I hold with those who favor fire. But if I had to perish twice, I think I know enough of hate to say that for destruction, ice is also great and would suffice.
Cracks me up. So in any case, yeah, I don't know what's causing it, Alex. So something I want to look deeper into that matte feature, you know, really. And I'm sure it's a very GIF specific issue. But yeah, for now, send me the Swift or use the fix we just discussed.
Cool. Thank you.
You're welcome. Does anyone else have a question I should just jump to? That's why I'm here, really. Yes, Rose.
Adobe animates being a little weird.
Oh, yeah? Do you want to show me or do you want to tell me?
I think it's best I show you it. Give
All right.
me one moment.
All right. I'm going to stop sharing and I'll do my best to remember to start again afterwards. All right, Rose, the stage is yours.
So, you see how this thing at the top, do not let, is the same on the very first frame and is the same on the very last frame.
Okay.
For some reason,
Okay.
it's drifting down. I don't
Okay,
know
that's
why.
an easy fix, though. And is that on layer 4? Because your layers aren't made.
Layer 3.
Layer 3. Could you hide that layer for a minute? Do you know how to exactly? All right, great. Let's bring it back. All right. Are there any keyframes between that frame and frame 1 and the frame at the very end?
I do not believe so.
No, it looks clean. So, and where's it? Is it supposed to just stay in one spot?
It's
Or do you
supposed to
want-
stay in one spot and sort of fade in.
Okay, so it's the same location, but you want a change of alpha.
I just don't know why it's wanting to drift downward.
All right, I'll show you what to do. Can you unlock that layer?
Mm.
And I want you to go to that last keyframe of layer 3. I want you to right click right on the keyframe. And I want you to say clear keyframe. Now, what I want to do is just F6, right? So if you would, exactly. So now it won't drift. It's in the exact same spot, right? You could take that, whichever one you want to set your alpha to 0.
Okay.
Rose, can you give me 1 second? I apologize. There's something going on. I have to check. Anybody downstairs? Great. Thank you. Sorry about that. Rose, did that fix it?
Yep, that fixed it.
So, I
Thank
just
you.
want to say something quickly just to understand what happened. It's very, very often that a person copies their artwork because they're going to move it or do some alpha. And the smallest twitch of your finger, and the thing moved 3 pixels. The eye doesn't pick it up. But I call it drift. So sometimes you're looking at an object and it's just doing this little slight drift, because one of them got moved. Really, the best solution is just to copy it again. So that's what we did. So I'm glad I could help. Does anyone else have something for me? This is why I'm here today, really. Don't feel bad if you just, working away and everything's, working great. Remy, I hope you can hear me now. I think there was some serious internet issue.
Yeah.
All right. I can't hear you. I'm so sorry. You're getting extreme robot voice, when the internet bugs out. But I have my chat open just for you. So if you want to chat me, feel free. So folks, so here's the deal. I'm going to quietly set about working beside you on something similar, just so I'm in the same wavelength. And no one should hesitate at all to ask me anything related for the next hour, right? So that's the idea, right? So each one of you, remember, it's all right. It's a final, but the way I teach finals is not all about the grade. I'm more interested in them as a learning tool. So I'm happy to answer questions. So in the meantime, I'm going to set myself up. So I'm going to screen share in the meantime, but I don't feel like you're supposed to watch every little thing. I'm roughly just doing what you're probably doing so that people could look up and say, oh yeah, right, almost forgot that. That type of thing. All right. This is what's on my mind. So just mentioning for anyone who's half listening, right? I would never animate this because it's one long block, right? So all I'm actually doing with it is keeping it there so I could think about how I do want to animate it. So I'm going to move it off to the side and throw it out later. So I'm deciding I want the word everybody by itself.
Oh, so you're setting up bases for different parts, right?
Yeah, basically, I've been calling them blocks in class because I need to know what it's going to look like when all the text arrives. You know, we're focused on motion, but really, you think about it, the motion's going to take place in a minute's time, or really 10 seconds even, you know, depending on your pace. Let's say it's 10 seconds. Then the person's supposed to stare at what they're supposed to read. So it has to be satisfying. So I'm thinking out now what blocks I want to move. So I'm going to write everybody needs as 2 different blocks. I think I'm going to make those rather large. I'm going to make a vacation in lowercase letters, and I'm using both. I don't want the word floating by itself, right? And I think now and then would make a nice block by itself. So those, the way I've planned it, I have 4 objects that can move separately. But what really matters to me before I deal with the motion is what these should actually look like, which is not going to be like this. So I'm going to move some stuff around while I think it through. Here's the word everybody, and I want it large. I'm going to use the transform tool. But I always hold down shift when I use this transform tool because I don't want text distorted like it is now. So here's the original. I'm going to hold down shift so that I could transform it. This might be a good time to reconsider the font. I actually quite like this font, American Typewriter, but I could consider other fonts just by using the font menu. Something you've seen me do sometimes is I'll highlight the current font and use the down arrow just to spin through bunches. I strangely like this font. I think I am going to use it. It's simple, but I like it. I'm going to take this, and do I want that other font? I used to be able to use the eyedropper. It stopped working to actually steal a font. It's not working anymore. That's too bad. So this is called Bebas. I'm going to use it again. Get my transform tool and figure out how big I want it. Do I want it to be huge? Sometimes I go huge. I like that. This guy's giving me trouble. And I am going to keep the typewriter font for that one spot. All right, let me let that person in. So this has nothing to do with the piece project, and I'm doing that so that no one gets confused and starts to copy what I've got. This is really just to talk about techniques. I will always spend some time making sure that this step looks good, that I'm feeling really confident about it. Because no matter how good the animation is, if this isn't any good, it's gonna, you know, be disappointing. think I want to choose a stage color, which I should have done first. Let me go with this bright color here. And I'm reconsidering. So I'm just narrating lightly because I'm really hoping people are focusing on your own work mostly. But I think everybody sees why I would spend this kind of time. The animation's sort of meaningless if it doesn't arrive at some wonderful conclusion. This teacher clearly needs a vacation. Once I'm confident, I'm going to automatically take each of these blocks and make them a symbol. Classic tweening can tween text, but it creates a lot of troubles unless you turn the text into symbols first. If these were drawings, I would definitely make them all symbols. So I'm going to click the first one, then I control click or right click, and I use convert to symbol. So all my handouts on this subject have repeated this. Make the artwork or the text, click one, and do convert to symbol. That's with right clicking or control clicking if you're on a Mac. I'm going to take graphic symbol because there's a few choices. And I'm going to just call it everybody. And I'm going to move to the next one. Needs. This one's hard to get at because it keeps hiding underneath needs. So I'm going to have to move this over for a minute and click the next. Convert to symbol. A vacation. And I can move stuff back at this point. I got to make sure to get to every one of them. And here they all are in the library. By the way, if I double click any of these, I go into what's called symbol editing mode. It's sort of isolated that one object, and I can make any changes to it. And if there were copies of it all over the animation, they would all update anytime I made a change. This is the same as going into the library and saying, oh, I want to change this one. You just double click it, and I could change it in any way I want. But I'm going back into the scene by using this feature up top. All right, they're all symbols, and if I had any doubt, I'd click one, and I'd look at the properties palette on the right. It'll say graphic. If it is a graphic symbol, it'll say its name. I can go one by one. This is needs, vacation. So these are all verified that they are indeed graphic symbols. All right. Step one, make and design the art. Step two, make each separate object each separate block into a graphic symbol. Step 3 is to get all that stuff on its own layers. So what I have to do is select everything I want moved to their own layers. I'm going to use my black arrow here and just drag over them all. They're all selected. And now I'm going to actually ask Animate to move them to layers. I love this feature. So I select all the parts that need their own layers, and I'm going to go up to the Modify menu. Modify, Timeline, Distribute to Layers. This is just an incredible feature. You know, I've done this with illustrations sometimes where I need all the parts of the artwork on separate layers. Modify, Timeline, Distribute to Layers. Since I named those symbols, Animate got really smart about it and named my layers. So I just have to do some cleanup. I made the art, I designed the page, then I went and I made each thing a symbol, and just now I did Modify menu, Timeline, Distribute to Layers. So I want to look over my layers. The one with a white dot on it is empty. Let me zoom in so you can see that. Right? If it's got a white keyframe, this is called a keyframe, there's nothing in it. Everything lived on this layer, but I distributed them to new layers. So layer 1's empty. I'm going to click layer 1 since it's empty, right? If that's a white dot, white keyframe, that means there's no art. I'm going to delete it with the little trash can. Then I'm going to rearrange these layers so they match what I see on stage. So I'm going to take the everybody layer. Oops, sorry. And I'm going to drag it up. Then it says needs. I'm going to take needs and drag it up. Then I'm going to take a vacation and drag it up. I could skip this step, by the way, but this helps me from getting confused. These are in the exact same order. Everybody needs a vacation now and then, just what I see on stage. Really, none of those steps would be wise to skip. You know, a couple of them would positively stop the animation in its tracks. So if I make the graphic symbols first, the layers were easier to make, and they came in named, which is pretty sweet. If I separated them to layers first and then did the symbols, I'd have unnamed layers right now. It'd be a little extra work for me. So I prefer this order. In any case, they must be symbols before you turn on your animation, before you turn on classic tweening. But even before I get busy with classic tweening, I want to take a guess about how long this animation should be and lengthen the timeline. So F5 was a key we used whenever we wanted more time. I'm about to use some F5. So everybody's going to come in, I don't know, 20 frames worth. So if each of these took 20 frames to actually arrive, that would be 20, 40, 60, 80. That means I'd need about 80 frames to finish it. I'm going to round it up to 100 frames. You'll notice I'm passing by second marks. Here's 2 seconds. Here's 3 seconds. I'm going up to 100 frames, with just a little over 4 seconds. Every layer needs me to click there and use F5. So now only the word everybody gets to live for 4 seconds. I'm going to go to the next layer. Now the next layer gets to live for 4 seconds. And I'm going to work my way down so that everybody has a few seconds to live, which sounds very dramatic. 2 things I want to add. Most of us are on computers that need the function key, but not all of us, right? So you got a big souped up tower model, you probably don't need the function key. I don't know, to tell you the truth. But typically, keyboards where the F keys are used by the operating system to turn on your music or change your volume or whatever, we want them to behave, we want them to function like Animate wants. So when I use F5 on my computer, I have to keep FN down, the function key, and tap F5. All right. Now, the next thing I want to say is save early and save often. You know the rules about finals. If anything can go wrong, it probably will. Power outage, you know, the cat running across the keyboard. I better save this thing, right? File menu, save. If I wanted to be extra on the ball, I would name it the way the handout told me. I'm going to take a look at the handout. MMP100-final -first name last name. I think I can remember that. MMP100-final -first name last name, and it depends what your name is. I'm going to name this after my cat, Roshi. Oh, that's my old cat. Oh, sorry. I insulted my cat. Andromeda Lagata. You name it with your real name. I'm just having fun. And pick where you want to put it. I'm saving it to the desktop right now, which is a little messy. But that means everything I save, if I make a SWF later, if I make a GIF later, even if I made a video later, they're all going to show up wherever this FLA lives, right? In my case, it's going to be on the desktop. You know, my desktop's embarrassingly sloppy, so I'm going to make a quick folder for it instead. Yeah, it'll be a little easier for me to find everything, and I'm going to save it. We've been through a lot together, guys, so I apologize when I say something obvious. I know you guys are swifter than that, but I just like to be complete, you know. Remember, the first time you save is important because it has the name and knows where it's going to live, what folder or where it's going to live. But after that, just doing Command S or Control S is all you need to update it. A lot of designers will say, make a change, save a change. So they literally do Command S or Control S every time they make a decision. It's prudent. Okay. So now I've got all my layers set up. I got my artwork set up. What I'm going to do is I'm going to, again, go with the very simple timing of delaying certain phrases so that they scatter in time. The first phrase comes first, and then the second phrase arrives, then the third, and on and on. I do want to mention to all of you, though, there's an infinite number of ways to look at this. And the only reason I don't want to start improvising all over, which is my way to just, you know, keep making stuff up, is I don't want to be confusing, right? This is the final. So I'm just going to stick with the steps that I portrayed. I may make them a little different. But if you have a different idea in mind and you're feeling ready, go for it. So right now, I definitely do want the word everybody to come first. So I'm going to leave it in frame 1. Needs, I don't want to show up yet. So I'm going to drag it over, I think, to frame 15. And since we've done this before, I'm just going to finish this step. I'm going to go to the next block represented by that keyframe on its layer. And I'm just going to press the keyframe once to select it, then press and drag it to move it. And I'm going to go way out to 30. So each one starting 15 frames later than the last. So if I played it right now, what's weird is I didn't do the last phrase. So it's just sitting there early. You know, the others come in their own time. So I better fix that last one. So I'm going to press on it and drag it over. If I can't get far enough, I'll just leave it and then scroll over and drag and move it some more. This is what I got now. You see animations like that. You know, you see it on TV commercials all the time. They don't always slide and fade in. Sometimes it's bolder. Safety features, 1, 2, 3, you know, trying to be, you know, bully about it. Less soft, you know. But I got my timing. Now I got to figure out what I really want them to do. So I think I'm going to have the word everybody slide down from the ceiling. I'm going to give everybody 10 frames to do their own private routine. I mean, each block. Now I'm working on the actual word everybody. So what would I do to get started when I'm ready to do some actual motion? I'm going to go to each black keyframe. This is important. I'm going to go to each black keyframe and turn on the classic tween before I go any further. You know, I got a basic idea in timing, and my layers are definitely set up. So I'm going to go to the first black keyframe, and I'm going to say create classic tween. I'm going to find the next one that represents the next block down here on the timeline. And I'm going to click that black dot, that black keyframe. And I either right click or control click, create classic tween. We didn't learn the other tweens, right? So I'm going to stick with classic tween. I'm going to go to each one now from the moment it's born. You know, its first frame, first black keyframe. And I click that keyframe and I say create classic tween. And here I am on that last one. And the reason I do that, it really makes the actual motion much easier when they each know they're going to classic tween. So here I am back at the top. I want this to take 10 frames to do something. So I go 10 frames down, and here's where F6 kicks in. I just want to quickly say something about the difference between F5 and F6. F5 is just time. So I could put it between keyframes, and I'll add time in the middle. The second keyframe just keeps moving over because I'm F5ing in between. Filler, 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 and it's pushing it over, right? But it won't create little keyframes that represent where the object is. It won't represent the artwork. It's just pure time. F6, though, copies the artwork. So anytime I want the artwork to do something different, I'm typically going to F6 it. So I F6 to get this. The odd thing about our technique, and again, I want to credit Orange Design, I believe they're in New York City, for pointing this out to me via a famous artist named Hillman, a motion artist, that if you have your design first, like we did, you could go back, like we're doing now, and control your motion. What I really want to say is basically this. If there's two keyframes, it's the second one you should not move. This one's where it wants to land. The first one could start anywhere. It could start to the left. It could start from the right. You know, it could start from the top. So the first one has a different location than the second one in this case. All right, I'm okay with that. So now I want to figure out what I want this to do. Needs? I think that's going to come from the bottom. Why not? So this frame 15, I'm going to give it 10 frames. I'll go 10 frames over, and I'm going to F6 it. Just be sure not to move the second one. Once you have a pair, the first one can move freely. Now I got this. So now I'm deciding about a vacation. And the one thing I'm going to stick with is this idea of little 10-second actions, 10-second behaviors. So this keyframe started on 30. I'm going to go 10 frames over to 40 and F6 it. So the word a vacation now has two potential locations. Now, if I did want it to slide in, I'd go to the first keyframe and then move the artwork. Whoops. I better lock those upper layers because I'm going to keep clicking on them. Now it'll be a little bit easier. I could move it over. But what if I didn't want it to move? What if I want to do what Rose did? I just want it to fade in. Like I don't want to move at all, right? All right. Well, in that case, I still have to click both the keyframe so it knows when I'm talking about. I'm saying now, right here. But if I want it to be transparent, I also have to click the artwork. And I've proven this a few times, but I feel obliged to do it again. If I click the keyframe so it knows when, I still don't see color over here. So I also have to click the artwork one time only, and then I see color. So that includes transparency, which is alpha, and tint, which is fun for color. I'm going to go with alpha and set it down. I'll go all the way to 0. I like it so far. I'm going to save again with Command S, and I'm going to interrupt myself. So I know everybody's working on their own thing. as you're supposed to be. Has anyone bumped into anything that's worthy of a question? I'll even check my chats too. Everybody's okay? I want you to know you rock whether you have questions or not. You guys totally rock. I really got to tell you something. This has been a particularly fun MMP100 semester for me. I mean, the core group that always comes live, that some people, because of COVID, blah, 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 have to take it through YouTube. I love you too, YouTube people. But, you know, you guys come live, make it possible, bring, you know, the energy to the room. All right, so if there's no specific questions, I'm just going to move ahead with what I'm doing. So right now, the only phrase that didn't get any action of its own was the last one, which looks surprisingly satisfying, even though I didn't do anything to it. Just showed up. But I'm going to do something. It could also come from the bottom. Let's think. Everybody needs a vacation now and then. Yeah, I'm going to have it come up from the bottom. I think that'll work. So it starts in frame 45. Again, I got to choose the timing. I'm going with these 10 frame little, roughly half a second actions. 45, I'm going to go out to 55 and F6 it using my FN key. And of course, in all cases, I back up to the first one to tell it what to do. So I'm going to have it come down from here, but I'm also going to alpha this one. That one got 2 treatments. Nice. I'm going to save it. And I think what I want to throw in is the idea of a changing background. Since I showed you in that animation, I've been animating the same poem a lot the last week, this thing called Fire and Ice. The intro to 2D class ends with lip syncing. So it's all about the mouth. But I also get that class involved with blinking and making eyes move around so that when someone talks, they look kind of believable, you know, rather than, hi, how are you guys? You know, with like that. It's pretty weird. I don't talk to anybody who talks like that. So we do blinking and mouth movements, which is kind of fun. So any of you take that class with me, I intend to do the same thing next semester. But he had a moving background, so I'm going to do it. I'm going to make myself a new layer. I'm going to just call it BG, short for background. I'm going to drag it to the bottom because this is going to be behind everything else, just like when we did Photoshop. So rather than this yellow background, I might do another yellow background, but I'm going to make a box. Because if I make a box, I can make it a symbol and I could tween the background itself. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm getting my rectangle tool. I think I am going to use the same color though. And I'm going to drag myself a rectangle right over the stage. There it is down here. So I have to click it and make it a symbol, just like I did with the words. Convert to symbol. It's graphic. I'm going to call it BG also for background. I want to show you, here it is in the library. Right, so the others are words, but this is just a box, yellow box. So I'm going to turn the tweening on right from frame 1. I don't want it to move, right? Because it's covering the whole background. That's not really what I'm after. All I really wanted to do is to change color. So I could go downriver and F6 anywhere I want to make a copy and give the copy a new color. If I do that, it's going to keep changing color all along. So I'm going to do that first, and then I'm just going to throw in how you'd make a color pause for a while before it starts to change. Pauses are an interesting subject in general. So here I am in frame 1, the word comes down, and I want some kind of change, right? So I think I'm going to make the background change by 20s. So I'm going 20 frames down, and I'm going to F6 it. Now you might remember, to use alpha, you'd have to click a keyframe, but also click the artwork, right? The same thing's true of tint which I'm going to use. So I find the keyframe, click the artwork, go to the properties palette. Color effect shows up, you know you're good. I'm going to choose tint because that's the only way to change the color of a symbol. I'm going to pick a color. I could also choose the amount of the color. So this picks the color, and this picks how much of it. And I'm going to move forward. I'm going to go another 40 frames and F6 it. I got a third opportunity to change the color. I got a new keyframe. I click the artwork once, so color effect shows up. And I could change the tint. I could either lower the current one down to 0, it'll look like the original, or I could change to a whole different color. I want to show this to you, and then I'm going to mention a pause for anyone who's interested. So it adds a little bit of flavor back there. But if I wanted that green to pause for a little while and then maybe turn yellow again, this is what I'd do. Here's the last frame where it's green. If I want it to pause, I'll choose how long I want it to pause. So say I'm going to go 30 whole frames. So I'm going all the way out to 70. That's over a second. And I F6. The trick is don't do anything to the second keyframe. If I don't do anything to this one, so in other words, this one here and the one following way over are exactly the same, it's a pause. Car's running, but it's still in the driveway. If I wanted to change after that, I have to make another keyframe. So what's going to happen is it turns green here, stays green now for 30 frames. I'm going to go a little further and F6 it, and then change that one. So here's the last. I'm going a little further and I'm F6ing it. Click that artwork, and I can make any change I want from here. I'm going to go back to the original color. I'm going to save this, and you should be able to see it changes all the time, then gets green, it stays green, and then at the end it turns yellow again. Just think I like that. Just need to save it. So every now and then I come up for air. See, is everybody still okay? I'm sorry to keep asking. I sound like a nervous parent, right? Are you okay? Are you okay? Is there anything in the refrigerator? Come on. I just said to my daughter yesterday, isn't it annoying when parents want to be helpful all the time? Jeez. I know some of you have annoying parents that are legitimately not that parent. I get that too. You'll grow up, you'll be the better parent when your turn comes.
Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't.
Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. That's right. That's right. You know, a lot of people are far from home and they're just missing family. So I shouldn't make jokes like that. Life's an adventure. Does anybody have a special request for me? Something you're just curious about?
Professor,
Yes.
I have a question. Is that like this, everybody needs a vacation now and then is the first page. And if I created a second page and I finish it, but I thought I want to like the first page time more longer. How should I do?
Those are good questions. So in other words, did your first set of text all disappeared and then new text comes in?
Yeah.
But you want the first page to wait longer?
Yeah.
Got it. I want to imitate this situation in so to really imitate it, I'd have to make these disappear. And I could do that in a number of ways. One, I don't want them to disappear early. So I'm going to give them all a keyframe right at the very end. And I think of these as like anchors in time. Like up to here, you're kind of good. I could do anything I want afterwards, and it won't interfere with the earlier animation. And as Ying was saying, she does want to work on the earlier animation by making it take longer. So I'm going to do that soon. But right now I kind of gave them all an end cap, almost like a period at the end of the sentence, because I'm going to make them all disappear. So I'm going to go a little bit further now, and I'm going to make them all disappear. So I'm giving them all keyframes early since I know I'm going to want to do that right here. And to keep it simple, I'm just going to have all of them go to alpha 0. So this sort of anchored where they are, the way they look now. I'm going to this new set of keyframes I made here, and I'm going to click them one at a time. Oh, they're locked. Hang on a second there. And I'm going to set up my alpha. The couple of the words I keep knocking into, that's just why I'm doing so much locking. And I think I don't need the locking anymore, so. All right, so the first part of this idea was I'm having my first, I'm just calling it a page, like Shu Ying did, it just disappears. So right now, if I wanted, I could have it say anything I want. So I'm going to actually add a little something here, but I need a keyframe. This I never mentioned before, and I'm impressed that people figured it out. If I want to add new artwork and there's no keyframe, I have to make a blank one. So I'm going to click here and do Control on it, or right click to get the menu, insert blank keyframe. So that looks just like the keyframe we got at the beginning of each layer. Those were by default, so I didn't have to make it. But if I need one late like this, I right click and I do insert blank keyframe. All right, so I'm on it, and there's new text for the second scene or the second page, and I'm going to just add something. You know, I'm using yellow text, which is a problem. There we go. And if assuming that that was going to do something, right, I'll give it some time. Frankly, I don't even need the other layers anymore because they're done. So only this one really needed any time. And without going over all the details, quickly, of course, I'm going to make it a symbol. Same as all the other ones. I turn on the tweening. I figure out what I want it to do. I'm making my second keyframe there. I always need at least 2. And it's the first one that's supposed to do something. So currently my animation looks like this, and then I finally get to answer Shu Ying's question. I'm just going to create a longer pause at the end by adding frames with F5, more filler. All right, now to finally get to the question, there's 2 possible answers. If you want to add time to the first set, let's call it, you know, the first scene, I'm using the term very loosely, and you want everything to follow to be exactly as it is, I got a really easy solution for you. I'm going to back up to the last scene. Now I have to figure out what is the part I want to last longer. So I want to show you what I mean. This is fine the way it is, but maybe I just want it to stay here for longer. So I got the background changing color. I'm going to let it do that. And let's say this is the part I wish was longer, right? So if I bring the keyframe over to a safe part, everybody's done. I just want it to stay longer. Here's the trick. There's a way to use F5, where, as we know, adds time, but there's a way to have it add time to every layer under the playhead. So if I could find a safe part, that means it won't slow down something important. I had the word zip go, zip. I don't want it to suddenly go zip, right? So I'd go after that keyframe. right? So I'm just asking, essentially I'm asking the pause to stay longer. This is what I'm going to do. I'll be sure not to click in here or any individual layer. I'm going to click way up here, right up here above the layers, right on the playhead. When I F5 now, watch the layers. Everybody's moving over. I'm adding frames, but everything to my right is being pushed over. So if I keep on doing that, I've created a long pause in the first scene. You know, it's really waiting, and then that comes. Now that wasn't long enough, so I'd like that to be extended. This one's easier, you know, because it's just one layer. I could just click in it in F5, it'll have the same result. You'll see the end keeps getting longer. So it's adding frames over here, just pushing the rest over. So again, if you click up here, everything underneath it will respond to F5. If you click in one layer, only that layer gets the new frames. Did that help? Excellent.
Yes. Thank you, Professor.
You're very welcome. You know, timing is everything, they like to say. You know, comedians always say that. But for animators, it's just crazy specific. I mean, even with kinetic type, you wouldn't think your audience actually can experience a 24th of a second, but they actually can. You know, there's sometimes some parts just wrong, and it's just like a couple frames too long. Would have been very satisfying just a couple frames earlier, or something's too fast. You know, for example, those of you who are delivering SWIFTs to me, SWF, and most of you giving me GIFs are giving me loops. And I like that, the loops. But the only thing that ruins a loop is if the end is too abrupt. So like if you notice, I have the word amen hanging out before it loops. And it sits there. And it didn't sit there long enough, so the loop felt weird. Now it looks like looping. Is it amen? Everybody needs a vacation? No, it's everybody needs a vacation. Amen. So I want a big pause after this before it loops. So I just want to point something out. This is a pause. There's nothing interesting here. So if I just want it to stay longer, all I'm going to do is go further out. So here's it's like 7.5 seconds, is 8.5 seconds. I'm going to go all the way out to 9 and simply F5 it. So if you're concerned that your loop feels natural, let it do its thing, stop, hang out, and then do its thing. Stop, hang out. Because otherwise it's like this. People can't tell what the beginning of the end is after a while, all right? So you really want the end to just chill. So it's all going to be about F5ing in some way. I'm enjoying the questions. I hope I'm not too distracting. I'm one of those nervous teachers that has to keep teaching. I can't really, I knew I wanted to teach because my favorite teacher always had coffee in the New York Times. He'd sit there like 3/4 of the, he was a drawing teacher. He was just so good. You never minded him just sitting there. Eventually he'd come over and say something incredibly useful. Go back, have more coffee. I thought, that's for me. That's what I want to do. This is not the subject to teach if you want to drink coffee and read the Times. Teach painting or drawing. Everyone works so hard, so long, they forget you're in the room. You could leave.
Yeah, completely zoned out right there.
What's that?
I was working on my project and I completely zoned out.
So listen, Jason, do you have any questions or you want me to look or anything? I'm available.
I'm almost done with one part. Just to finish that first and I'll show it off.
All right. So guys, I'm not pushing anybody to share or anything. I'm really leaving it up to you. I mean, some of you have some very sly smiles, so I know something cool's going on. But if I have to wait, I'll wait.
Probably like a few more minutes.
That's fine. There's really no obligation. I'm going to see a bunch of you on Thursday. I know a bunch of you are going to finish early and take the day off. And if you make that choice, don't feel bad about it. You're not cheating. The teacher's endorsing it, right? Really, Thursday's there for people who still haven't made this happen yet. You know, and if I come and nobody's there, I'll wait about a half an hour, I guess, and then I'll leave. But next Tuesday, I'm showing up for sure. You know, I'm going to do that. Like, think of it as a free workshop, that one day Illustrator workshop. I'm only nervous that I'm going to make some of you too excited about Illustrator, and then you're going to be like, "What now? That was only 2 hours. What now?" But if you do feel that way Tuesday, the good news is it's a very well documented program. There's all kinds of free lessons and starting in Illustrator all over the internet. So once you get a taste of it, if you can't find a class, I'm honestly not sure about this program, and I don't know it so well other than my own classes. So I don't even know if we have a devoted, dedicated digital illustration class. You know, they tend to combine that stuff often in 2-year schools, you know. So I'm going to be quiet right now. I think I'm going to think of something else to add while I wait. And again, just interrupt if there's a question. I'm looking at my chats also. All right, let's see. What else can one do? All right, this is going to be a little silly. I'm going to make this word bounce around. So it arrives here. I'm going to have it hang out a little bit. So I'm going to move down just a dash, F6 it. And then after that, I want it to do something. And this is something I haven't really mentioned much, because a lot of what you're doing is alpha. Some of you guys got involved with tint. But if all I'm doing is movement, it's actually crazy easy. So I have to point something out because it's delicious. And it's for once you have motion, watch this. Since my classic tween is on, and we know that because it's purple, right? I can go anywhere down in this purple area and simply move the object, right? So, and it makes the keyframe for me, which is pretty interesting. So I'm going to let it do that. And then what I'm going to do is move a little bit further over here and do what's called a squash and stretch. The only thing that creates an automatic keyframe is moving the art. So if what you want to do doesn't include moving it, you have to make your own keyframe with the F6 trick. So right now I had to make my own because all I really wanted to do was squeeze it. And pull it. That's called a squash. I want it to stretch back out right afterwards. So it has to get to its regular size a few frames later. And I don't want to have to do that by eye, really. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to steal an earlier keyframe and jump over this one. So I could hold down Option and just pull it right over. I literally jumped over it in a way. So what I've got now is this. That was too fast of a squash there. So I'm going to click in here and use that F5 timing trick. Take a little longer. So it bounced. Boom. And maybe after that, it'll move back to the middle. So what I've got now is this. Let's see. So I told you it'd be a little bit silly. I've got no reason for the word amen to go bouncing against the edge. But the theory of it is there's a frame on the left that's regular, a frame on the right that's regular, and the one in the middle gets squashed. It's very cartoony, and I'm not sure it works in something like this. So it's openly distorted, like it just hit something. Making a final fade out. Like most of it, don't like the squash. So I would probably get rid of it. I'm hesitant to be overly distracting, as I've said. I do want to mention just one little thing since I've got 10 minutes for people who are anxious to explore actually drawing in this program. We've been using text for two reasons, really. One is it's an incredibly popular form of motion because every commercial has text that moves. You know, literally every ad you see on a screen, surely on TV. The internet sometimes is still, you know, but motion advertising is the line, you know, is at least half of advertising, I would guess. So I want to include text. The other reason is it avoids the fact that some people like to draw and other people don't, right? And it helps me, you know, address a whole group. I want to mention a couple things that are kind of amazing about this program and drawing for those of you who are kind of curious about it. So I'm going to open up a quick page just to make the point. One of my favorite tools in this program for drawing is the pencil tool. And because it behaves in ways that the pencil tool doesn't in other programs, not even Adobe Illustrator, which is, you know, the go-to drawing program. This tool here draws with an outline color called a stroke. So this color here in the back that looks like a picture frame, and I could pick any color. But here's where it gets interesting. If I draw and I want to fill something, say an eye, right? I can cross this because this program will let me fill this area with a color, but it has to be completely closed. So what people sometimes do is they try to fake it, but since it's not closed, I can't really fill it. Now the paint bucket here fills. So I would use the fill color here, pick a color, and I try to pour it in and it just won't go. But this one it will. And what's so incredible about that is I knew it was closed because I crossed the lines. But you may be thinking, what if I don't want those lines? This is amazing. The black arrow knows these lines are sticking out. I click it and delete them. So the main idea with that thinking is if you want the freedom to close shapes, and this is true in Adobe Illustrator also, you have to understand how that program closes shapes. This program will work best if you cross shapes to be sure they're closed. And it'll be easy to fill with the paint bucket because of that. That's beautiful. This one's open and I won't be able to fill it. So the beauty of it is this. I can get the black arrow and clean up after myself. I learned this from a cartoonist. After years of using the program, I just never noticed this behavior because it's so unique. Here's the other thing I love about the pencil tool. If you select something that you drew, like this, so I'm going to double click it because it has a fill and a stroke here. All the way on the right, I'll see this show up called smoothen. So again, you'll need the black arrow for this type of thing. You select it, and look what the smoothen button does. Look at that. Smooth it out so beautifully. It's almost like I drew it with a more advanced tool, the pen tool. I want to add stuff we did on the first day is still true. The black arrow always let us do this. So I could still reshape things. It doesn't always do what I want. You know, so I mean, sometimes I'll try to make, you know, the eyelid close for a blink. And I'm stuck doing a lot of this. But I have to say, it's still pretty intuitive and pretty attractive. A lot of people will also want to learn about the wide arrow, since the wide arrow is more specific. It knows that all these anchors exist. So I could be a little pickier about how I adjust things with the wide arrow by knowing what anchors I'm actually moving. With the black arrow is intuitive. I spend a lot of time with it. Click things, I smooth them. That guy I showed you before who was reciting the poem was drawn mostly this way. Lots of pencil tool stuff. Here's another guy drawn that way. He's reciting the same poem.
Fire and ice. Some say the world will end in fire, some say in ice. From what I've tasted of desire, I hold with those who favor fire. But if I had to perish twice, I think I know enough of hate to say that for destruction, ice is also great and would suffice.
It's interesting. I think some of the people in the class here who are interested in heading into the arts may be heading into multimedia, which is a very vague title, isn't it? I mean, to me, that sounds like engineer. Like, what the hell's an engineer? I mean, do you drive a train? You know, choo choo, you know, what? Do you design shavers or atom bombs? I don't know. It's very vague. Multimedia. So multimedia is like that, really. You know, you have a lot of choice of what you include in that kit of media. A lot of them will do kinetic type because it's such a big player for web design, say, and that type of thing. They don't all do animation. So I'm a multimedia guy who's been doing more animation all the time. So I'm bringing in character animation after years of flying type. You could tell I'm very used to flying type. At least I hope it shows, because that always paid. And as a web designer, I always had a good excuse to say, hey, I got an idea for you. You know, we could do this. You'll get more attention instead of just a masthead up there. We'll have an animation of the name of your company come in. Of course, you know, at a bill. And it was, you know, very attractive and fun. Jason, do you have a question for me? Is that why you're waving?
Oh, no, I wasn't waving. I was just setting up something to show off what I was working on.
Got it. All right, I'm checking chats to see if anybody's been looking for me. So look, we're going to end class in 5 minutes. If anyone does have a question, this would be the best time. If anyone just wants to show what they got, you're welcome to do that too. Yeah, Brandon.
Yeah, show.
Oh, it'd be great. Yeah, let me stop sharing.
Okay, I'm not sure if it looks all right. I saw you did the like the little amen thing at the end. So.
Are you you're not sharing it, you know, right?
Yeah, I know. I'm just
okay, just
talking
getting
about it. I was just like, to preface it, I just put like a little rock on at the end of, because I found a really good like font that had like that sort of heavy metal sort of looking aesthetic to it. I don't know if that's an aesthetic.
Where'd you get it?
It's from a fighting game, so I'm like in that community, and they just ported out the font and they just sent it to me.
By the way, if anyone has not done it before and would like to just go looking for fonts, probably the most popular free font website is called DaFont. You know, like it's from Brooklyn. DaFont, D-A font, dafont.com. It's easy to figure out how to use and got some nice fonts. All right, I'm going to give the stage over to Brandon. Oh, Brandon, can you start over again? I had everybody's I was looking at everybody. Thank you.
Oh, okay, yeah. Just
I like that addition.
Oh, is that a Guilty Gear reference?
hell yeah! All right, he figured it out. Yeah, it
Yeah,
is.
I got the font. I got the font.
I know nothing about it, so I can't
Mhm.
join you on that. But you know, Brandon, I do want to make one suggestion. Can you bring the playhead back to the beginning?
The beginning, yeah, it's a bit slow.
No, it's a color thing. You see how the color you chose for the word
Oh.
piece is almost disappearing against the background? So
Yeah.
I want to mention something to you. Because it's a symbol, right?
Oh, you can't.
There's two ways to change the color. We could change one of the keyframes, like maybe have it start subtle and end in something more easy to see, or we could change the word in the library. So,
Oh, okay.
like if you want to change in the library, double click it right there. The icon next to it's a little easier than the word. Exactly.
Oh,
Here
here.
you can do whatever you want. You could change the font, you could change the color.
Oh, I see.
So just make sure you could see it. And every keyframe in the movie is going to update.
Can
So
I
if
add
they
like an
have two-
outline?
Well, basically, like, just see what's going on here is, and hear this out. If we took a black and white picture right now, the word piece would have been the same gray as the background.
Yeah, no, I was wondering if we could have like an outline around it so it would
No, that
separate.
would be, we could do it. It would be some work.
Ah, okay.
You
So
know, I mean, if you
it
really
would just be
want
better to change the color. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Just make sure you could see it.
Like this pink
Yeah.
looks cool.
It does look cool. I totally agree with that one.
And then when we bring it
Exactly,
back,
you click that arrow. So now bring it back. You'll see the whole thing's going to change.
ah,
Nice. Very nice. I have to admit, it's the rock. He makes it work for me.
Honestly, thought the beginning font was a Street Fighter Third Strike kind of font.
oh.
Yeah, but then the rock-on made it obvious.
Yeah.
A whole other language. But you did a good job. This part is very sure of itself. It's quiet, it's self-assured. I give it a big thumbs up. But then it surprises us, and that's what I
Yeah.
like about it. It's so peaceful, and then it's got this agitated
Yeah.
thumbs up kind of vibe at the end.
I like doing shaking effects. I don't know how to do it. Like, what is it? I like doing it. I wish there was an easier way. I would just do it manually, like keyframe just every single
Well, can I
shake.
show you something fast then? If you want to turn
Yeah.
off your screen share, I'll show you something about that I
Okay,
think you're
yeah.
gonna love. So you actually have it at your fingertips. What you need for the shaking effect. So
Oh.
I'm just going to point it out. Let me
Mhm.
just open up something for myself here. So it doesn't matter if it's a word or if it's an object. So I'm just going to take, a rather plain old object, and I'm going to go through the usual steps. This little feature is so annoying. I don't really need this. It keeps opening up. All right. So you notice I just made it a symbol. It's already in the library.
You're not sharing.
So I'm
Screen.
turning on my classic tween from the first frame with the artwork. And I could make this as long as I want. Remember F5.
You're not sharing your
Let's say
screen.
you want that thing. Oh, I'm not sharing my screen. Let me back up a bunch. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
I didn't hear you. There we go. Give me a second. I do that every time. Every single time. All right, here we go. I just dropped a drawing down there, a little shape, boring shape. I'm going to make it into a symbol first, just like I did with the text. And I'm going to turn on the classic tween. Now I know I'm in frame 1, and I hope everybody gets it. I was able to do that because the artwork lived in frame 1. So I turned on the classic tween. Now this bar is offering me 1 second of potential shaking or movement. If I think I'm going to want it to shake for longer, I'll just make the bar longer using F5, not F6. So I still have 1 keyframe, just a long bar. Watch this. If I move over a little, I could take this object and move it a little. I move over a little bit, and I could move it the other way. Anytime I move the playhead, I can move this object however I want, and it just makes the keyframes for me. So what's going to happen, and I could do it further apart. I don't know if it'd feel as agitated if it takes longer to shake, but we'll find out. I'll make them a little longer so we can see. So I'm not even making the keyframes. I'm just letting the classic tween do it. Did you see? Does that help at all?
Yeah, I would, because I would be like using frame and frame, and then I would like right click each of them and just say like classic tween, and I was like, oh, this is pain.
Yeah, you know, I say I like the way you look at this stuff, and you know, the more you do this, listen, I gotta tell you something really honestly. Like any artist, I'm in here and I'll find a tool and I'll be like, this tool's baloney. You know, this is a stupid tool. I'm gonna ignore it. 3 years go by and I suddenly realize one day, oh, if I did this with it, it would have saved me 100 hours of work. Oh no. So I
That's
gotta
how I
say,
felt about the pen tool in Illustrator.
right. And then, you know, once you start getting to the hang of how it works for you, you're like flying. So what I want to mention is when you got into the stage where there's an actual classic tween, you know, you're seeing that purple bar there. That means the artwork's there, right? If it's motion you're talking about, you don't have to make any frames again. You say, okay, here's it's done rattling, and now I want it to head toward the ceiling. So I'll go a little bit further over. You know, I'm trying to get the hang of timing, and I'll just bring it where I want it to go, and look at the timeline. It made the keyframe. So it just sort of does its rattle and then goes up. The only time it's not obvious is if you want to pause, right? Because the only time it makes an actual keyframe is if you move it. I've seen people cheat. They'll like move it and then move it back as a way to make the keyframe. But I think that's kind of silly. So the main thing to know is if you want it to move, you don't have to do anything. Move the playhead, change the location, move the playhead, change the location. The only time that won't work is if you wanted to do something in place, pause or do color. So if I wanted this to end with a new color, since I want it to stay here, it won't automatically make the keyframe. In that case, I'll move the playhead, click in here, and I'll do the F6 again to make a keyframe. Then I could have it do whatever I want. So it's a subtle thing, a little hard to talk about. But basically, if it's all about motion, you don't make the keyframes. You just move the playhead and move it.
Oh, okay, because I was thinking about, you know how like the rewards, like in my text, the reward sort of slides in. I wanted it to make like a sort of like a, I don't know what to call it. It like it has like weight to it, so it'll like overshoot and then come back.
Yeah, I like the way you're looking at it. Those are some serious animation principles you're talking about, and none of them are entirely obvious, you know. But I'm going to throw in one or two things just to see if it interests you. And again, guys, I don't want to go too deep in the deep water, but I don't mind pointing out things worthy of research, right? So I want to show you the kind of thing that I do a lot in the Intro to 2D class. So we start that semester with very simple objects. You know, we get to know some basics. And right now I'm going to tell it in 40 frames to cross the stage. So again, I'm going to make sure the playhead's at the end in that case and just drag it because that's movement. I didn't have to make a keyframe. It's very mechanical. So something I'll often do is add easing. This is just a peek at easing. I'll click anywhere inside the tween, doesn't matter where I click, but I'm inside that layer. And on the right, I see this area that says classic ease. If I click it, I'm going to show you what ease in, out looks like. What it basically means is start slow and end slow. Like if you were running, right? You'd probably start slow, right? You catch your main stride and then slow down before you hit a wall. So here it goes. So that's pretty cool. That's not what Brandon's asking about, but it's related, right? Now I'm going to click in there again. What if I only had it ease in, right? So that means it's going to start slow, but it's not going to end slow. Hang on a second there. That looks like it did end slow. Come on. Ease in, I said. I better hit return. There we go. Okay. So it's going to start slow, but it doesn't slow down. All right. So what would I do, you know, to have it like overshoot a little bit, right? I think, let me just think this through for a minute. Let's think. I think what I'll do is I'm on the last keyframe. I'll make it go a little bit further. Move a couple playheads over. And since right now there's no tweening out here, I'm going to have to do my own F6ing. I'm going to go a couple frames over and F6 it. This one you would think I'm going to bring back at the actual final location, but I'm not. I'm going to overshoot the other direction. So currently it comes along, goes past, and then comes back too far. And then I'm going to actually have it land where I want. So I'm going to have to F6 again. Let's see if that was worth it. Right? So that's the overshoot, the bounce back. It's usually a 3-frame affair. One's going to go too far. Then it's going to bounce back, like, you know, hit the brakes and you kind of like, woo, your whole body goes back. So it goes back a little too far. And then the 3rd frame might be the one that actually arrives. So I get this effect. And it's very bouncy. That one has no pause after it, so it's a little awkward. I want to add that was kind of a light demonstration. I will often have things jiggle a few times. You know, if it overpasses by a lot and then steps back by a lot, the next time it'll overpass again, but not as much. Back up, but not as much. You know, really like kind of the Jello effect. You know, I spent a lot of time staring at Jello. Won't eat the stuff, but I like the way it moves. Really made me think about animation. For one, I'm vegetarian. You know, we don't eat Jello. I hope I didn't break the heart of any vegetarians in the room.
Wait, you can't eat Jello if you're vegetarian?
It's made out of animal bones.
Oh, the gelatin, right?
Yeah, the gelatin in it. It's
Oh,
gross.
okay. I've always wondered what was it made out of.
They have vegetarian versions now.
I know Oreos are vegan.
Are
Right.
they now? Because they weren't my whole life.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so people like me couldn't eat them. We'd all go looking for like Numinos and all these like, you know, modern versions of it. But they probably realized there were, you know, also kosher people couldn't eat it for the same reason. So they were just losing a lot of business.
Huh.
They probably realized that and like, oh man, just change one ingredient. We got, you know, 100 million more Oreo addicts.
I see.
You know, got to separate them. So, hey guys, does anyone have any questions for me? I have a couple more minutes. I'd be glad to answer.
No, but I got my stuff ready to share.
Do you? All right, we can take
Yeah.
a look, but I just want to say something to the others in case people do need to leave since it's 10 to 3. Listen, as I said, if the final comes in early, you know, before Thursday, you don't have to come Thursday unless you just feel like it. You know, Thursday is going to be another round of this. Everybody seems more able than I'd estimated, and I don't mean to be insulting. It's just I've had hundreds of students. It's hard to tell. So I have the feeling some of you wouldn't have needed that extra day, a lot of you. But if you want to show up, I'll be here, usual time, usual place. If the work's not done, you have to come. But I want to remind you, next Tuesday, if you want a little bit of time with Adobe Illustrator, right, that's officially exam week, I'm making it a freebie class. Then come Tuesday, same as always, go to the handout, you know, the usual routine. So I do want to say one last thing then. That basically means if you finish the final, right, and you don't want to come for the Illustrator workshop, you're done, right? So I may not see a couple of you again, right? So all I want to say about that is this. Be sure you check Blackboard so you know if you owe me anything. You know, we need to do any last minute cleanup. This is the last chance, right? If everything's done and you need to move on with life, I want to thank you for participating in this ride with me. I sincerely enjoyed it. It was cool. You know what I mean? And I understand life goes on. When COVID's over, maybe we'll bump into each other around campus or something. I believe it still exists on faith, that it's still there, right? So if I'm not going to see any of you guys soon, I'm going to say an early goodbye. Everybody else, I'll see you either Thursday or Tuesday or both. All right. So I'm going to give Jason the stage for a little bit. So I'm going to stop my screen sharing. All right, your turn.
Thanks, Professor. I'm going to take off.
You got it, Eddie.
All right, take care, Eddie.
Pleasure.
How's it going, guys?
My pleasure.
So I'm still not used to this app that helps me show for my iPad, but I'm gonna give it a test right now. Hang on.
All right. Are you screen sharing?
Yep, here we go. This is one scene that I'm planning
But I'm not seeing your screen. Am I supposed to be?
It says I'm screen sharing.
It does?
Yeah.
Hang on a second. Let's see what went on. Maybe it's on my end. Give me a minute.
Let's see.
Oh, now I see you. Sorry.
Yeah.
Ooh. Hey, could you rewind it?
It's a loop.
It's a loop. Okay. Oh, I'm loving it.
But this is for one scene in the project. I'm planning to use the text, but involving some more work on this. I cheated a bit and used Procreate, but I'm gonna use
I'm okay with that.
I'm gonna use Adobe for different scenes, and then like edit all this together to like one mini
Well,
movie.
Could you
and
tell me a little bit about Procreate? Like, what is it exactly? I haven't used it.
So Procreate's basically an art tool for my iPad, and essentially, hang on, let me just quickly.
So it's both drawing and
Let me just quickly duplicate this.
Great.
As you can see in the background, I have like other work that I've done.
I see.
But what Procreate is like an art tool, and it has some stuff from Adobe, like let's say like a specific selection tool. The animation.
I'm ask you something though. It's both drawing and animation? Procreate?
Actually, the animation is like a new feature, so it's still like some parts like you have to work around, but I managed. Which is why I'm not making it into one big project. I did it like into individual projects, and then edit it in what is it, Premiere?
Hey man, I got to tell you, I really like the light and shadow on your character. Really nice, and just the movement's also beautiful. But I like your light and shadow as an illustrator, and I'm loving the movement of the hair. I really am.
Yeah, the hair took me a long while for this.
It looks rough. It really does. It's something that I avoid a lot. So I'm actually, and I really like the subtle movement of his torso.
Yeah, he's walking. This is like the second scene.
Ah.
In the first scene, we see like a shadow of him walking, and then later the next scene, a close up.
I love it. Well done, man.
But I promise you, there's going to be more movement later on. It's going to involve text.
And this is all for the final?
Yeah, this is going to be for the final.
Good God, Jason, you're changing the standard by yourself now.
Yeah, I just said screw it. I'm doing this my way.
All right, I love that. I really love that. It's good, right, David? Do you like it?
Yeah, I love it. It really shocked me. So I'm speechless right now, to be honest.
Hey, that's the best praise you can get, Jason. Do you hear that?
Thank you.
That's cool, David. I love watching.
It's good to know.
Each other.
It's good to know my days of work. Well, the last 2 days of work actually helped me.
Off, right?
Yeah.
Remy, are you there? I know. I think Remy was having some serious audio problems earlier, but.
Yeah, but when I left last time,
maybe there.
What's it? I think when I went out, when I wasn't there for last class, that was me planning out like, okay, what can I do for this? And then it hit me with this.
Remy, I was just checking just to see if you got a chance to enjoy this, enjoy Jason's work. Jason, the thing that, it's easy for me to talk about light and shadow, and it's easy for me to talk about moving hair because it's a hassle, and you did such a good job. But really, on a more subtle level, the idea that you're communicating him walking without the legs or really much of the arms, just by the way the rest of the body moves, is very sophisticated. So I have to say that I really, really respect. It's really somebody walking, and even without the limbs or anything moving around him. So I teach this kind of walk in my class, right? So it's a profile walk called a walk cycle. We focus on the legs. And a lot of people like the background to move. So this way they don't actually have to make the guy walk. Just the equivalent. You see it on TV all the time. It's not just animation. So
yeah.
You could just imagine how this would look if there were objects, actually like this, I guess, right? Because he's walking forward,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd have to focus on perspective and all that, like coming in, making items big and then small as they go back to the background.
Maybe after the Christmas break, because you got to get to the type part. But
yeah,
on your own, that might be a nice addition.
I mean, walking is tricky too. Like, here's another quick animation I've done. Hang on, let's see. Here we go. From the bottom view, this kind of walking is weird for me, but I'm still learning.
Jason, I'm so impressed. I'm still learning too. You know, I teach animation at the school because at first they wanted me to bring motion graphic thinking into it. A big player at the school kind of knew me from that kind of work. So my kind of work was not a lot of people talking and walking. But my students love that stuff. So they actually, by doing it a lot, it's changing my own work. But I'm always really interested to see how other artists behave. It seems to me that you really do know a lot about walking, that you could really feel it. So Jason, I want to ask you, what's your main learning resource? Like, is there a book or website, or like, how do you go about teaching yourself new stuff?
Now, the thing, so it's usually mainly watching shows, TV shows, anime, cartoons, that kind of stuff. Now, if I want like specific references for like key moments, I have manga, comics, stuff to, you know, find out like what key moment to make it obvious that this person's walking, this person's doing this thing. That's the kind of reference that I use.
Have you heard of the Animators Handbook?
No.
I want to show you something. Could you turn off your screen share? Really, thanks for sharing though. That was really very interesting. I want to make sure I get the name right. I have the book downstairs, but I don't want to run and get it. So let me just take a quick look.
I was actually planning, like, you said you had an animation class, and you said it was secretly a pain to be in. So I'm taking up that challenge, and I'm gonna see if I can get in that.
I think it's kind of made for your attitude. Seriously, it's like, it's for people who are not prepared to work a lot. The class is a drag, but for people who love this kind of thing, the class is a party. You know, there's always a new opportunity. To be honest, you'll be more advanced than a lot of the people there, but not everybody.
And that's ironic because I don't like work, but it's just my passion for really liking animation that
I understand that.
suits me.
So listen, I want to mention this incredible book, right? If you do choose to buy this though, please try to find yourself a used copy because it's really expensive and the used copies are just as good. So here's a copy with $5 savings, for example. But I just want to tell you very quickly, the animator who wrote this knows more about body movement than anybody I've ever witnessed. Anybody. He's worked with every famous person that there is that does this. So he's endless stories about, oh, this is the guy. And it's like, oh, it's the guy from Bugs Bunny. Or this person taught me this. And it's just packed. It's incredibly dense, but it's mostly drawings. So example, this is how a fat person might walk, a fat man, you know, fat gruff man. This is how a skinny, elegant man. This is how a woman might walk. And, you know, all these nuances with pages and pages of drawings, and not just about walking, obviously, but it is probably the most famous book on the subject. Almost every animation teacher is going to mention it. So, you know, if you're that interested in this kind of thing, you kind of owe it to yourself to get a copy of this. It's true gold. I can't believe the guy. It looks like an incredible amount of work for a book that probably made very little money, considering, you know, what, 1 in 1,000 people wants to do this. You know?
1,000 people are willing to sit down, constantly draw about like thousands of to do like for what, like 15 minutes of animation.
Right. So I want to back up and say something about that particular very valid comment. He didn't have tweening like we do through most of his career. So he's coming out of that frame by frame tradition where you draw absolutely everything. There is a book that I have somewhere around, I'd have to get the name for you, that takes the same principles that this guy's basing his book on and does it all in Adobe Animate specifically. That book is very little known, but it also exists. I would definitely vote for getting this book if you're going to be an animator and it looks like you're hell bent on it. You know, you're going to want this as a reference. It's just great. But when it comes to like learning newer tech methods, you know, like how would I do this in Adobe Animate, or how would I do this in Adobe After Effects? which is really, really popular right now, or Toon Boom, which I've never tried, but it's also very popular. They're all going to have slightly different takes, but the understanding of the figure, like those wonderful feet you were just showing us, the understanding's always the same. The technology is going to keep changing depending on the tool and the moment. But thanks for sharing. So guys, listen, unless one of you have a question or something you want to show me, which I'll make the time for, I'm going to take off, move on. So, do you guys expect to be there on Thursday, or do you not know yet?
I'm going to be around for Thursday.
Yeah, David too. How about you, Remy? Got my chat out. So, actually, David needs to talk to me, so I'm going to actually say goodbye to everybody else. David, you can still stick around?
Yeah, I'm going to leave after this.
So, Jason, I'm going to see you Thursday, right?
All right. Yeah, see you Thursday.
I'm going to check one quick thing. All right, I say, Remy, you ready to say goodbye? I'll see you, Remy. And David, stick around so we can go over that stuff. All right.
All right.
See you,
Take care,
Jason.
Press. Take care, David.
Yeah, Jason. Wow, Professor, I gotta admit, I was.
1 second here. I just want to stop recording, Just give me 1 minute. Bye, YouTube.